Hi everybody, my name's Andrew and today I'm driving the new 2025 Volvo EX30. For all intents and purposes, the EX30 is meant to be Volvo's entry-level electric car. And while it is certainly small, it's also still almost $50,000, which isn't exactly affordable, but either way, it's a much more compelling option than the XC40 Recharge, which was previously Volvo's entry-level EV, because this was designed ground up to be an EV rather than a gasoline conversion. So let's go ahead and check it out. This particular EX30 is the top-level twin-motor Performance Ultra trim level, finished in Vapor Gray, which in the sun actually kind of looks more silver, but either way, I'm a big fan of this color. I think it looks really cool. And it pairs pretty well with the dark blue and black interior, which you'll see in just a minute. But in terms of size, like I said, this is very much the entry-level Volvo now. It is a whole 8 inches shorter than the XC40, and well, shorter in terms of length, but also slightly shorter in terms of height. I mean, this car is basically a hatchback, even though they do still want you to think it's a crossover. I think this angle here probably gives you the best perspective of the size of the EX30, because I can see clear over the roof. It honestly feels like I'm just looking over the roof of a sedan. And fun fact, this is actually closer in length, I just looked up, to a Honda Fit, or Honda Jazz for those of you in Europe, than it is to a Civic hatchback, like the Type R that I just reviewed recently. But anyway, enough talking about how small it is. Let's talk about practicality, because it is actually still surprisingly practical despite being a rather small entry-level crossover hatchback thing. If I fold my lid down there and move it out of the way, you've got a good amount of space back here, and you have a little bit of underfloor storage, not much, maybe only 4 inches tall there, which you're probably not going to be able to see, but I'll overlay some footage. It comes with a sunshade, which is nice, and then your EVSE. But unfortunately, there is not really a useful frunk in the EX30, despite being a ground-up EV. There is really not any usable space up there. So this is what you've got, but for the size of the car, it's a good amount of space. And the design of this thing is pretty square and upright, so you don't have to deal with height constraints as much. And actually, I actually really like the design of this thing. The front's a little iffy because it just, the whole no grill thing doesn't always work on every car. But I like the back and I like the side profile. I like the taillights especially. The Cadillac Lyric-esque like split thing up here is kind of funky, but amber signals all around, which is always something we love to see. Much like Tesla, Volvo gives you a key card to enter and exit the EX30, which you do so by tapping on the B pillar there, again, just like a Tesla. Regular door handles though, which is nice. Hopping inside, you'll notice the indigo and black two-tone interior that I mentioned before, technically 3-tone if you include the white piping. But speaking of Tesla, actually, I am very much impressed with the way Volvo has done minimalism in this interior. Because of course, it's the same kind of idea as a Tesla, right? Not a lot of buttons. There's buttons here. There's a handful of controls here. But otherwise, no gauge cluster and no buttons at all on the dashboard. And really even no buttons on the doors either. It's the same idea, but they have executed it far better because the infotainment UI is pretty good. It's Google-based, has wireless CarPlay, but even if you don't want to use that, you still have Google Maps built in, which is huge thumbs up. But also the material choices in here and the color choices, frankly. I mean, this, starting from top to bottom on the door, this is soft touch. This is a cheaper plastic, but I know you can get sort of like a different textured material here as well. This is a textured plastic that kind of looks neat. I'm sure this is probably some kind of like recycled material. This is soft touch fabric back here, and then the same recycled, I'm assuming, material down at the bottom. The seats are of course not going to be real leather, but they are actually combination fabric on the top portion with the blue here. Swedish flag logo there, of course, with every Volvo. But the seats are very nice as well. In typical Volvo fashion, the seats are pretty comfortable, although the controls unfortunately are quite confusing. This little square is your only seat control here. There's, again, as I just showed you, nothing on the door, so this is all you've got to work with. They've actually, it's kind of clever, to be honest, how they've made this work, because obviously forward, backward, up, down, recline, this way. That's all, you know, pretty easy to figure out, actually, and actually very well integrated into a single control. The problem is there's a button in the middle, which then you have to go to the screen, and of course it already timed out before I could even show it to you. For one thing, you get your lumbar. Oh my lord, that's gonna bug me. You get your lumbar. If you hit the button a second time, you get your tilt adjustment. There you go. So the seat does have a tilt adjustment to the bottom cushion, which I didn't think it did initially, but you have to do it through here, and it's not the most responsive. And as you can see, it times out very, very quickly as well. Since this is a ground-up EV, you have tons of storage here in the center, because obviously you don't have a traditional drivetrain tunnel running through there, or drive shaft. The cup holders are pretty clever, because you can choose how many you want. For instance, you can have none, or you can have both, or it'll lock in the middle there for just one. But then, of course, my giant Hydro Flask doesn't fit in them. I still have to put it down here. And you tap the key card down here as well to start the vehicle with putting your foot on the brake when you hop in. I'm assuming that you can use your phone as a key, primarily, like Tesla, because that's not the most convenient. But anyway, I just accidentally locked the car because I was trying to show you the other things up here. This, I don't think, opens. I can't find a way to open it. But on the back side, there is a little bin that pulls out of the bottom that has a moose on it. So that's cute. And then a couple charge ports and window switches for the rear passengers. But anyway, that actually leads me on nicely to these controls right here, because these are your door locks and your window switches in the middle, in the center console. It's a weird place for them, but I mean, the door locks are self-explanatory, lock and unlock. The window switches are like the latest Volkswagen ID products, unfortunately, where by default they control the front windows, and then you have to hit rear to be able to control the back windows. But again, the rear passengers do have their own controls in the center there, like I just showed you. So it's just kind of unnecessary minimalism, really, because like you could have made this panel stick out like another inch and fit 2 more switches there, or you could have just put them on the door, like, you know, where window switches typically go, next to the windows. But nevertheless, luckily the controls in the central driver's zone are pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, blinkers and wipers over here on this side, a regular or semi-regular gear stalk, unlike the stupid stuff that Tesla's doing now where you swipe up and down on the corner of the screen to change direction. I like this a lot better. And the steering wheel, these look like garbage haptic touch buttons like Volkswagen, but they are actual buttons. They click. There's no feedback or anything. They just click, and they work, and they're simple and great. Easy enough. The one thing I do wish was physical was your mirror controls, because unfortunately they are in the screen, because once again, there's nothing on the door. They're fairly easy to get to. If you click on the little car icon, just kind of like Tesla, again, just a different location for the button, you'll have your lights, your rain sensing wipers. Glove box, by the way, is in the center. I meant to show you that a second ago. Don't know why they decided to do that. I guess it was probably cheaper for left-hand drive versus right-hand drive. I don't know. But anyway, glove box there. Your ambient lighting, your trunk, and various driving controls. But then your mirrors, of course, as well. And you use the steering wheel buttons to shift them up, down, left, right, depending on which one you're changing. Change the left one so you can actually see it here. Is that working? Yeah, it is working. Just like the Polestar products, the entire mirror housing moves with the glass. The glass doesn't move separately, so that's pretty neat. And they are power folding as well. Hopping in the rear seat, the first thing you're going to notice is that materials are consistent with the front, which you always love to see. And the second thing you're going to notice is that this is my driving position. I am barely 6 foot tall, and my knees are up against the back of the seat. My feet don't really have anywhere to go. Yeah, this is the downside of it not being a very big car, but still having a good amount of trunk space, is that they had to give up some space somewhere, and it happens to be the back seat. Luckily though, the seat itself is pretty comfortable. I have a great view out of the glass roof, which does help it feel a little bit bigger, because the floor in this car is also pretty high. So there's, if I sit up straight, there's really not a ton of headroom here compared to, you know, other cars, especially with a glass roof, other electric cars, I should say. So honestly, this back seat would be fine for a shorter trip. Ideally, if you're taller, you would sit on the passenger side and just have the passengers scoot forward a little bit. But, you know, not somewhere that I would necessarily want to spend a road trip. Back here, I also have the window sticker for this EX30. As you can see, it is the twin motor Performance Ultra. It has pretty much every option you can get. The sunshade, which I'm just now learning is a $200 option. I thought it was included, but there you go. Climate package, which is basically heated seats and steering wheel, for a total MSRP of almost $50,000, excuse me, $48,595. Yeah, that's a lot of money for this car. It feels really nice in here. Like it does feel like, you know, a $40-something thousand car in here. But let's take it for a drive and talk a little bit more about that number. Obviously, I keep mentioning Tesla, and whether you like Tesla or not, their vehicles are pretty much the iPhones of the electric car space, meaning they are pretty much the default choice, so that's naturally what everything else gets compared to. And of course, this being a sort of entry-level electric car, it is naturally going to be aimed at the Tesla Model 3 and or Model Y, which are now two of the best-selling cars in the world. And how does this thing stack up, really? I mean, price-wise, yes, it's almost $50,000, but this is the top-end Ultra twin-motor version, like I mentioned before. So it is the version that does 0 to 60 in a stupidly quick 3.4 seconds, which is only a couple tenths off a Model 3 Performance. And this is actually a few $1,000s cheaper than a Model 3 Performance. Obviously, you don't have the other handling upgrades of a Model 3 Performance with the new gen, anyway, that gets different seats and better brakes and stuff like that. This is not meant to be a sports sedan or sports hatchback. Hot hatchback, I guess, would be the appropriate term for this car. But honestly, it does, on paper, stack up pretty well in terms of performance. And in terms of minimalism, like I said before, I think it's done a lot better. The design is frankly more interesting. The materials are better. There are certain touches that are better, like the real door handles that I mentioned, and the driver controls, like the shifter and the wipers and everything. Obviously, there are some things that still could use some improvement, but Google UI is great. And honestly, overall, it's done really well. So how does it drive as an electric car? Not specifically compared to Tesla. Well, the driving modes, I wish, had a little bit more customization, or I guess not really customization, but more of an effect that you could actually notice, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because right now the steering is in the sporty setting, the firmest setting, and it's still super light. It's pretty responsive, all things considered. I mean, in terms of speed, steering speed, sharpness, but it's really not great. I'd also love to figure out what the hell that beeping is, because I'm sure you've heard it. It's something with the ADAS suite, something with the driver assistance tech that just keeps bunging at me. Like, there it is again. I don't know. I have no idea what it is. I thought it was like a speed limit warning, maybe. But, okay, that one says focus on driving, stay attentive, and avoid distractions, because it knows I'm looking at the screen. But the other random beeps, I don't know. I don't think it's a speed limit warning, because it's not actually showing the speed limit right now. There's no cars in my blind spot, but it shouldn't be beeping for that anyway, because I'm not changing lanes. So anyway, that's kind of annoying. But overall, the ADAS suite in here, Volvo's Pilot Assist system, is, you know, pretty good. It's not anything remarkable, but, you know, I think the standard really is going to be either Tesla full self-driving, as much as I hate to say it. It is a pretty darn good system now. Or Super Cruise, or Ford's Blue Cruise, where they are actually, you know, hands-off systems. This isn't on that level, but as for the hands-on side of things, it's pretty good. The regen braking isn't super strong, but it's blended pretty well with the friction brakes. And you can turn off the one-pedal driving if you so choose, if you don't like that, the feel of that. So that's good. It's quiet in here. The seat's pretty comfy, like I mentioned before. Having to look in the center is always going to be weird for your speedometer and things like that. So that's always going to take some getting used to. And honestly, because this is a portrait orientation screen, the information does actually end up being slightly further away from you than in most of the Tesla products. So I don't love that, but overall, I mean, it drives like a car. Frankly, it just drives like any other semi-premium luxury EV that also just happens to be stupidly quick. I'm going to launch it here. Okay. I drove a Tesla Plaid at work this week, and that car really blows you away with the acceleration if you've never experienced something like it before, because it really jerks you back in the seat and has that sort of drama factor to it. This car doesn't do that, because it just kind of rolls into the power, and really you don't even start to feel all the power until like 30 to 35 mile an hour. But it is still obviously going to be way quicker than than anybody needs. Weirdly, this EX30 is actually slightly heavier than a Model Y Performance, despite a smaller overall footprint. So I don't really understand that one, but I'm also not an engineer. But to draw one final comparison to Tesla in terms of range and charging performance, per the window sticker of this EX30, Twin Motor Performance Ultra, I think is the full name of it. Or actually, sorry, it's the EX30 Recharge Twin Motor Performance Ultra. Anyway, it's a hell of a name. The official EPA range of this particular car is 253 miles. And peak charging performance is about 150 kilowatts, slightly over, I believe. So neither of those figures are class-leading, but they're not terrible. They're not going to break any records, but they're also not subpar. Honestly, that kind of sums up this car as a whole. I think there's a lot to like about it. The minimalism in the interior is done way better than Tesla, as I've said. It drives nice. It's got decent features. It's stupid fast, like I keep saying. Overall, I think the EX30 is going to be a great daily driver type EV. Maybe not necessarily the best road tripper, but a great daily driver for somebody that lives in a city or has a relatively short commute and obviously has access to charging. It's a really good EV overall. There's nothing objectively that I could fault it for, other than maybe the price. I just think it's a little bit too expensive. But to be fair, you are getting a lot of features and a lot of performance for that price point. I just maybe personally wouldn't necessarily have this as my first choice unless there was good incentives or good lease deals on it. Although to be fair, I do really like the body style of this thing, because until the new Rivians come out in a couple of years, there's not really any other hatchback EVs at the moment. They're all crossovers or sedans. So that it does have going for it. It's unique in that aspect, and I like that. But anyway, to wrap this video up, I'm going to extend a huge shout out to Cody at Beach Volvo here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. If this car is still available, you'll find it linked down below, in addition to the rest of their inventory. Huge shout out to him for providing me this vehicle today, as well as another vehicle that you'll see in a different video shortly. And if you're looking for a Volvo in the area, or really anywhere in South Carolina or coastal North Carolina, come see Cody at Beach Volvo. And as always, if you enjoyed this video or found it informative, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for plenty more videos to come.